In this session, we will learn how to connect suitably rated wires in the terminal box of a solar panel and connect end terminals using MC4 connectors. At the end of this session, you will be able to know the terminal wires and MC4 connectors, explain the types of MC4 connectors, know the junction box and list the steps to connect MC4 connector to the DC cable or wires. Let us learn about the MC4 connectors. The MC4 system consists of a plug and socket design. The plugs and sockets are inside plastic shells that appear to be the opposite gender. The plug is inside a cylindrical shell that looks like a female connector but is referred to as male, and the socket is inside a square probe that looks male but is electrically female. The female connector has two plastic fingers that have to be pressed toward the central probe slightly to insert into holes in the front of the male connector. When the two are pushed together, the fingers slide down the holes until they reach a notch in the side of the male connector, where they pop outward to lock the two together. For a proper seal, MC4s must be used with cable of the correct diameter. The cable is normally double insulated, insulation plus black sheath, and UV resistant. Most cables deteriorate if used outdoors without protection from sunlight. Connectors are typically attached by crimping, though soldering is also possible. The MC4 connector is rated at 20 amperes and 600 volts maximum, depending on the conductor size used. Standards allow 1000 volt versions. A general MC4 connector specification includes manufacturer name, rated for say 30 amps max, the connector itself, not the wire, rated for say 1000 volts max, and rated temperature range say minus 40 degrees Celsius to plus 90 degrees Celsius, minus 40 Fahrenheit to 194 Fahrenheit. Due to the locking mechanism of the MC4 connectors, they will not come unplugged and are well suited for outdoor environments. The connectors can be separated, but it requires a special MC4 unlocking tool. In a series connection, the modules are wired together by connecting the positive lead on one module to the negative lead on another module. The male connector will snap directly into the female connector. This increases the voltage of the circuit. If the modules are rated for 18 volts at maximum power VMP, then two of them connected in series will measure 36 VMP. If three modules are in series, the total VMP would be 54 volts. The current at max power IMP will be constant when wiring a series circuit. A device called a PV combiner box is used for paralleling more than two modules or paralleling strings of modules. The combiner box will be performing the same function of the multi-branch connectors but for more than two panels. The total number of modules that can be combined will depend upon the electrical rating and physical size of the combiner box and also on the PV design. Further, the technician should know how to select and use MC4 extension cables. Each wire located inside a 4 mm cable works as a conductor, and the cable is comprised of multiple such conductors. Solar wires are made from a sturdy material such as copper or aluminum. These materials provide reliable connectivity and the ability to transfer electricity from the solar panels to the home. Let us learn the steps to connect MC4 connector to the DC cable. Requirements are male and female MC4 connectors, 4 mm solar cable, wire crimps, and wire strippers. Set up the connectors. Mark the distance and decide on the length of the cable so as to join all MC4 connectors together. Crimp male connector. Take the cable and put a small bend on it to ensure better surface contact within the crimp. Strip the cable insulation by a small amount in order to expose the wire for crimping. Start by passing the screw nut over your metal crimp and then make sure the plastic housing has a non-return clip inside it. If you didn't put the nut on the cable first, you won't be able to get the plastic housing off. Secure rubber washer. The seal washer, made of rubber, is flush at the end of the cable requires the nut to be tightened closely. This gives a solid grip for a 4 mm solar cable. Otherwise, the connector may spin around the cable and damage the connection. Insert 4 mm cable. After crimping the 4 mm solar cable right, push in the connector till a click sound is heard, which indicates it is secured safely. Then, lock the cable in the plastic housing. This completes the connectivity for the male connector. Crimp female connector. Crimp the female connector the same way as it was done for the male connector. Connect the cable. At this stage, you only have to insert the cable. Pass the screw nut over the cable and check the rubber washer again. Then you need to push the crimped cable into the female housing. You should hear a click sound here as well to know it is locked it in place. This completes the connectivity for the female connector. Test connectivity. The final stage of the connecting process is to test the connectivity. Test the MC4 connectors exclusively before connecting them to the main solar panels or the charge controller in order to verify everything is working properly. An array junction box is used to connect the photovoltaic strings in parallel. The combined DC power is fed to the photovoltaic inverter. It includes photovoltaic string protection, overvoltage protection, and a DC output switch isolator. The AJB can be customized for different configurations based on the number of strings of solar panel modules used in the layout. AJB have the following components: enclosure, PV fuses, surge protection device, DC disconnect or isolator, and cable glands or connectors. These are the protection devices in an AJB. It is time to test your understanding. To perform the task, you need MC4 connectors, DC cables, wires, tools kit with crimping tool and soldering iron, 25 watts. Your task is to connect wires or DC cables to MC4 connectors. DC volt more than 70 volts prove very dangerous. Once solar panels are exposed to sunlight, they start generating DC volt. Study the pictures to familiarize with assembly parts of MC4 connectors. Practice connecting the MC4 connectors on red and black DC cables suitably selected. Practice extension of solar panel output wires as per requirement. Where panel terminal junction box do not have OEM output cables, select suitable color-coded cables and on one end MC4 connectors. On another end, solder to the relevant terminals on the panel junction box.
We have reached the end of this session on connect suitably rated wires in the terminal box of a solar panel and connect end terminals using MC4 connectors. By now, you should be able to know the terminal wires and MC4 connectors, explain the types of MC4 connectors, know the junction box and list the steps to connect MC4 connector to the DC cable or wires.